companies bury in their SEC filings and routine SEC filings like 8Ks, like 10Ks, like 10Qs. I've always been fascinated by the disclosures that companies make, the publicly available disclosures that they make, and it's almost like hiding in plain sight as opposed to just hiding. What we like to say is we're subject experts in SEC filings, not subject experts in particular companies. Companies bury things in filings because they can. If you think about who writes the SEC filings, it's largely written by lawyers, by attorneys. And I think a lot of financial analysts, if you think about what attorneys are most comfortable with, it's almost like a words versus numbers debate, right? So analysts are much more comfortable ripping apart numbers, looking for aberrations in numbers, abnormal numbers. And lawyers are much more comfortable burying something in verbiage. Instead of using the word subpoena, a Justice Department subpoena, which they would know, seems pretty serious. I've seen it called an invitation to respond to the Justice Department, as if it was like come to my birthday party, next week. A company that will file late on a Friday night, we like to call that our Friday night dump. So after 4 p.m. when the markets close, the SEC remains open for another hour and a half until 5:30 at night to accept 8Ks, 10Ks, and 10Qs. And that's when you tend to see companies literally taking out the trash. They'll file all sorts of interesting disclosures late on a Friday night in the hopes that most analysts are just not going to want to invest the time on their weekend to do that. And there's a lot of really funny disclosures in these filings. And if you really look for it, it never ceases to amaze me. Even 12 years in, never ceases to amaze me what some of these companies are disclosing. Apartments and, corporate jets and, one of my favorite disclosures is actually from a couple of years ago, was a company called Quest Telecommunications. They've since been acquired, but they actually disclosed that the new CEO had negotiated for access to the corporate jet for his stepdaughter so that she can get back and forth to high school between Denver and San Francisco. It's just amazing to me. That was just disclosed. And how were people not saying hey, does this high school girl really need to be flying on the corporate jet to get back and forth? Or could she possibly manage, if the company really feels a need to pay for her, because of disrupting the family, could she not buy a United ticket? Sometimes it's just amazing to me, some of the things that companies just disclose, and they're just hoping that nobody else is paying attention.